Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Laker Pro, our take on the sports world. I'm your host, Aaron Valentino.
And I'm Brian Rudman. We'll start tonight's episode off the same way we start all episodes, with highlights of the week. We take a look at the biggest things that happened in the world of sports. Aaron, take it away.
Let's get started with some college football. This past week, the number 2 ranked Alabama Crimson Tide took on the number 3 ranked Georgia Bulldogs in a Saturday night showdown. Georgia was up 24-17, but then Alabama came storming back, beating the Bulldogs by a final score of 41-24. Brian, I think it's fair to say Alabama's back.
I mean, did they really go anywhere? They missed the playoffs 1 year, and that was because, they had probably the best and most dominant college football team we've seen in living memory last year, and the LSU Tigers beat them, and their starting quarterback went down. So without those two things, I think realistically we're not talking about Alabama having to come back. But yes, Bama, statement win this week. We saw two very good football teams, but at the end of the day, we saw the difference in coaching. It was second half adjustments. Alabama outscored Georgia 21-0 in the second half. It was just an immaculate effort by the Alabama Crimson Tide.
I mean, look, I said it last week. I'll say it again. This is Alabama. This team has been good for God knows how long. They have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder this year. I know they were good last year, but they weren't able to make the playoff last year because LSU had a magical year. They're looking to get back there this year. Nick Saban, coming off of COVID, able to do his job, get the victory against the number 3 ranked Georgia. Great win for the Crimson Tide overall.
Absolutely. Big win in Tuscaloosa. Now switching to the NFL, the Bills fell for the second straight week, losing to the reigning Super Bowl champs, the Kansas City Chiefs, by a score of 26-17. Moving forward at 4-2 with Miami and the Patriots right behind them in the division. Is there any concern about the Buffalo Bills right now, Aaron?
That's a really good question, and I think the answer is, I don't really know. I mean, the only loss to me that is very, very concerning is that loss to the Titans. 42-16 was the final in that one. You can't lose that bad to a team that hadn't even practiced in over a week. But this is a loss, this Chiefs loss. I expected them to lose this game. The Chiefs are the best team in the NFL, in my opinion. And this is a bad game, a bad football game. It's wet. It's rainy. It's cold. Nobody wanted to be there. Their next 4, though, Jets, Pats, Seahawks, Cardinals. If they don't go 4-0 or 3-1 in those games, and they better beat the Jets, then I think there's some concern.
Yeah, well, I definitely think, like you said, there's concern with that Titans game. There is a little concern about how the Chiefs game went because the run defense looked terrible. Clyde Edwards-Helaire ran all over them, and really the entire Chiefs rushing attack was dominant. So that's the real concern. They got to fix that running game, because if they can't for that Patriots game, they're in trouble.
And moving on now, sticking with some football over in East Rutherford this weekend, the New York Giants were looking for their first win against the Washington football team. Big Blue had a late defensive touchdown to give them the lead, but Washington scored again with 40 seconds remaining in the game. Ron Rivera decided to go for 2 with the game on the line, but they couldn't get it, and the Giants go on to get their first win of the year, 20-19. Brian, the NFC East, it's up for grabs.
Yeah, well, it's really the NFC least, and I know that joke is overplayed at this point, but it really is. They're a terrible division, and obviously it's up in the air, and it's kind of sad that a team with just 1 win is right in the divisional race. It's kind of crazy, but this division is wide open right now. You look at these teams, the Cowboys' defense is terrible. The Eagles just haven't looked good. The Washington football team, they don't really have an identity right now, and the Giants are the Giants at this point. They kind of found a way to win against Washington. And especially with Dak out for the Cowboys this year, the division's wide open. And if the Giants can start stringing together wins in the division, you never know. They may win this division with 7 wins.
I personally love this division. I think it's great. I embrace how terrible it is. I'd love to see somebody go 6-10 and make the playoffs personally. I know I'm in the minority in that, but if the Giants keep winning, hey, it could happen.
All right, now switching to the Diamond. Yes, we are a few games into the World Series, but it's still worth talking about the crazy NLCS we saw this year. The LA Dodgers came back from a 3-1 deficit to beat the Atlanta Braves in 7 and advance to the World Series. Aaron, is this one of the best championship series we've seen?
I mean, listen, it's shaping up to be. The Dodgers are so talented at this point. Mookie Betts really, in Game 1 especially, just completely proved himself that he is still one of the top players in all of baseball. These are the 2 best teams in each of their respective leagues. The Rays have an unbelievable pitching staff. The Dodgers have a lineup as deep as the New York Yankees this year. both teams have just played so well this year. It's good to see them. I think it is going to be a good series. I think the series is going to go all the way to 7 games, and I think Game 7 is going to be historic for sure in a historic year.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. This has been an historic year. And going back to that NLCS a little bit, you kind of just feel bad for Atlanta. The Falcons blow double-digit leads on a weekly basis, it feels like. The Hawks didn't get invited to the NBA bubble in Orlando. And the Braves blow a 3-1 series lead. I've said it all year. I think the Dodgers are the best team in the league. It's unfortunate for the Braves. They ran into them in the NLCS. But, yeah, definitely shaping up to be a great World Series. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Brandon Ladd to go over the biggest news from the past week, including the return of football in the Big Ten and the retirement of a legend. You're watching Laker Pro on WTOP 10. We'll be right back.
And welcome back to Laker Pro right here on WTOP 10. Once again, I'm Aaron Valentino, joined alongside Brian Rudderman. It's now time to take a look at the biggest news from the week. So we'd like to welcome in Brandon Ladd onto the show. Brandon, how are we feeling tonight?
Doing good, and I hope you guys are ready for a ton of news this week. Let's get into it. We have a lot to get into. This segment, I will present Aaron and Brian with a news story that caught our eye this week. They will have 45 seconds to discuss. Is everyone happy? Okay, let's go. After a legendary career at NBC Sports, longtime hockey announcer Doc Emrick is stepping away from the press box. No longer will hockey on NBC be filled with hits the post with a shot and 100 different verbs to describe a pass. What is Doc's legacy, guys?
I mean, his legacy is that he's an absolute legend. I mean, he's one of the greatest broadcasters that we've seen. And I mean, look, if any of the three of us have half as successful a career or we're half as talented as Doc, I think we can say we're pretty successful in our lives. So, and also when you see so many people loving and supporting and thanking a play-by-play announcer, you know he's a legend.
Yeah, Doc's just an absolute legend, not just in the hockey community, but in the sports community as well. It's really sad to see him go. Hit the post with the shot is one of the most iconic sayings in sports history. It will live on forever. The NHL playoffs will not be the same without him. Doc, have a nice retirement. It was awesome to hear your voice over these past few years.
He deserves a little bit of rest now. Moving on to the NFL, Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers got embarrassed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Sunday, losing 38-10. Rodgers, after the game, said this is a good thing. Do y'all agree with number 12 in yellow and green?
I don't know if I necessarily agree that it's a good thing. Getting blown out 38-10 by old man Brady isn't exactly the greatest thing in the world, but I'm not too worried about the Packers, though. I mean, listen, Aaron Rodgers has put on an absolute show this year. He was pissed that they drafted Jordan Love, and he needed more weapons, he felt like. And guess what? He goes on, and he looks like he's having an MVP season at this point. I think the Packers are going to be fine moving forward. They're 4-1 right now.
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily agree that it's a good thing. I don't think a loss, especially of that magnitude against a team that's probably going to be in the playoffs that where, tiebreakers could come into effect is a good thing. But I think this serving as a wake-up call could benefit them in the long run. Just realizing, hey, maybe we're not as good as we thought we were. Let's come back focused next week and get a W.
Brian's going to like this one. The Big Ten is officially back, and I could not be more excited. The college football landscape just got a lot more interesting. Ohio State is the heavy favorite to win this conference. What else are you guys excited for?
Well, look, you mentioned I'm going to be excited. Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big Ohio State fan. I love the Buckeyes. And it really just feels like with the Big Ten coming back, we're in full swing. And I think everyone realizes it. Big noon kickoff going to be in Columbus this week. College game day in Minnesota. Next week, safe to say, they'll be at the Penn State-Ohio State game. So we're finally seeing a nearly complete picture for the college football playoff. Yes, the Pac-12 still hasn't played at this point. But realistically, we're seeing the top teams all back in action with the excluding Oregon.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Ohio State's finally going to earn their ranking this week. They're somehow number 6 at 0-0. But at 12 o'clock over on Big Noon Kickoff, look, it's going to be good to see all of college football back. And great to see the country come together. But we are going to take a quick break. But when we come back, it's time for stats and picks of the week. I think I'm doing pretty good in picks of the week, if I do say so myself. You're watching Laker Pro on WTOP 10.
Welcome back to Laker Pro on WTOP 10. It is time for the second most exciting segment on this show, stats of the week. I calculate the numbers. I ask the questions. The guys tell me what they see with those numbers. Let's go. Moving on to Tennessee here. Ryan Tannehill and the Tennessee Titans are 5-0, entering a rendezvous with the 5-0 Steelers this week. Tannehill this season is up to his same dominant ways as last season, throwing 13 touchdowns already on the season. Can he keep this up?
I feel weird saying this, but yeah, I guess so. I mean, Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown have been, very good weapons for him so far this year. And, Tennessee continues to perform, and Tannehill, continues to do what he needs to do in order for Tennessee to win football games. They have a big game against the Steelers coming up, so that's going to be a big question mark game for them. 5-0 versus 5-0. I'm interested to see what Tannehill can do in that one. But I'm not that high on the Titans this year, and every week they keep proving me wrong.
I mean, I don't really see a reason why Tannehill can't keep this up. I mean, the Steelers are probably going to be their biggest test so far. But look, when they're as good in the play action as they are and they have as good of a running game as they do, there's really nothing stopping them right now.
Heading up to East Rutherford here, the New York Jets are averaging 12.5 points per game this season. That is the lowest mark of the last decade except for the 2011 St. Louis Rams, who scored 12.1 points per game. Guys, will the Jets dip lower?
Yeah, probably. They got the Bills and the Chiefs coming up. They still got to play the Patriots twice. It's just this team does not look good. The offense has really no weapons outside of Jamison Crowder right now. The O-line has shown some good signs, but overall they're very beat up, and the play calling is just terrible. I mean, Adam Gase with his halfback dives and 5-yard outs and wide receiver screens, that's all we ever see. This offense is not headed in a good direction.
I think it's tough to say because this will be the first week that Crowder, Mims, and Perriman are all on the field at the same time. But that being said, with googly-eyed Gase being on the sidelines, they could get lower than 12 points per game, and it's very possible that they will.
Let's quickly go back to Tuesday night here. Clayton Kershaw pitched a magnificent game one of the World Series against the Rays, striking out 8 over 6 innings and only allowing a run. His curveball seems as dominant as ever. Can he keep this up?
Oh my God, Kershaw pitching well in the postseason. Who would ever thought? I mean, he's pitched well the entire postseason this year, and he continues to do it. And last night was no different. He pitched, or on Tuesday, that was no different. Pitched really well against the Tampa Bay Rays in an 8-3 win. And listen, with only 1 or 2 games to go, I mean, why not? Why can't he do it for one more game? Now, I don't think bringing him out of the bullpen is going to help anybody, but I think he can start one more good game.
Yeah, he finally shook that, he can't perform in the postseason bug this year. And look, on Tuesday night, he was just masterful. He looked dominant. Everything was working. He just looked great. I don't see any reason why he can't keep it up.
He's been great this whole World Series here, but shifting away from stats, moving on to our picks of the week. We argued about this, but I believe we were all 4-2, so this makes it even more pressured. It's time for picks of the week. As usual, we have a college matchup and 2 NFL matchups this week. Let's start up north with the oldest rivalry in college football, the Battle of the Little Brown Jug. Brian, who do you have, Michigan or Minnesota?
Listen, I got Minnesota this week, and I know I'm an Ohio State fan, and I'm not really going to like Michigan. But look, at this point in his career with Michigan, John Harbaugh hasn't proven that he can win the big game. I know they went and beat Notre Dame in the past, but if you look at it overall, this team doesn't show up in the big games, and having to play on the road against a good Minnesota team week 1, that's no easy task. I got Minnesota.
I'm going Michigan. I just think Michigan is Michigan, and they're going to beat Minnesota week 1. They're going to come out ready to go. John Harbaugh is tired of this narrative that he can't win big games, and I think he'll come out with, running and gunning and ready to go here. I think Michigan gets the win week 1.
I'm going to agree with Rodman here and go with Minnesota. Tanner Morgan, their quarterback last year, was unbelievable. He has a chance to be a first-round pick. This is going to keep following Coach Harbaugh, though, because he has just never won the Big Ten game on the road. It all starts in Minnesota. Moving on to the NFL here, though. Aaron, who do you have, 5-0 Steelers or the 5-0 Titans?
Well, lad, I think you know my answer. I'm not high on the Titans at all this year. I'm going with the Steelers. I think they're legit. I think Big Ben is legit. I think he has a good offense. I think the defense has been fantastic this year for the Steelers. I'm not high on the Titans. I gotta go with the Steelers in this one.
Aaron, literally like a minute ago, you said that you pick against the Titans every week and then it doesn't work out well for you. So I'm obviously going to go with the Titans at this point. The run game is so dominant. Derrick Henry looks great this season. He's having a historic season, and he's really been dominant for years now. Tannehill looks great, especially in the play action. Defense is good. Vrabel's got him coached up well. I got the Titans.
Brian, would you want to tackle Derrick Henry?
Absolutely not.
There you go. I'm going to ride with the Titans here. Derrick Henry's been absolutely unbelievable so far this season. Usually it happens late in the season for him. It's happening early. We talked about Tannehill already in the show. It's just been great for the Titans. I think the Steelers don't have the offense to get it done. I'm going to go with the Titans. Moving to the NFC West here, we have the undefeated Seahawks against the red-hot Cardinals. Brian, can this success for the Cardinals continue?
I really don't know. I'm going to take the Seahawks here. You know, just let Russ cook, man. This Seahawks team looks good. Chris Carson's having a great year out of the backfield. Russell Wilson finally in that MVP discussion. I think he should win it at this point so far. Pete Carroll's a great coach. He's experienced. I'll take the experience of Russell Wilson over the non-experience of Kyler Murray.
First off, I want to say two things. Hashtag let Russ cook. And two, shout out to Chris Carson. He's been fantastic this year for my fantasy football team, even though we're 1-5, but that's besides the point. I'm going to Seahawks here. They're 5-0. Russ looks like an MVP candidate. The Seahawks can continue to perform. They have the experience, like Brian said, over the Cardinals, who have been kind of up and down throughout the year. I'm going with the Seahawks.
It is the month of October, Monday Night Football, Cardinals and Cowboys. It was absolutely spooky. It is spooky season. I'm going to keep riding with the Cardinals here. I believe their offense has found its momentum. Their defense is scarier than people give it credit. And come on, how long can the Seahawks stay undefeated? Nobody goes undefeated in the season usually. It has to end eventually. That's all the time we have for game picks, but don't go anywhere. Lakers Showdown is coming up next. Will Brian get a big victory this week? Will Aaron squeeze out another improbable upset? Stay tuned. You are watching Laker Pro on WTOP 10. Back. It is time for the most exciting segment on WTOP 10, Laker Showdown. In the Zoom panels above me are Aaron, I need a win worse than the Jets, Valentino. Next to him is Brian, where'd the beard go, Rudman? Aaron, you are 2-0, but you still need a win. Who will win this week? The Washington football team grabbed all momentum late in the fourth quarter of their Sunday affair against the New York Giants. The score was 20-19. Under a minute to go. Washington can either kick it or go for it. Ron Rivera goes for it and fails. Was this the right move, Aaron?
I don't like this decision from Ron Rivera. I always like to take the guarantee in not only in life, but especially in sports. This team needed a win, and, to think, you're giving them more of a chance to do that, you're just completely wrong by going for two. Teams only convert on the 2-point conversion 10% of the time, so there was a 90% chance that they were going to end up losing this one if they didn't get the 2-point conversion, and they didn't end up getting it. This is a team that desperately needed a win, and Ron Rivera decided that let's go for it all. Let's see if we can get the win instead of, taking a risk and going to overtime. I don't like that call. The Giants end up getting the win. It costs Washington a big W in the NFC East.
Hindsight's 20/20, so of course I'm sure they want to go back and redo that. But I'm going to guess that they would go for it again and change the play call instead of kicking. First of all, Aaron, you said that teams only convert 10% of the time. I looked it up earlier today. It's a lot higher than that. You look at this logically.
I looked it up. It said 10%.
It was like 40%. Anyway, it's easier to gain 2 yards than it is to kick the ball off, play defense, and then drive all the way back down the field. And you look at momentum. They had just driven the ball down the field. They had the Giants on their back foot, tired and beat down. The Giants' defense had been on the field for a while. This was the right move. Also, the team averages 4.3 yards per play. More than enough to get it.
They lost.
I just fact-checked it, guys. CNN fact check here. Brian's right. It's 55%. Aaron, get your numbers right. Moving on here. Outside of the NFC
Wait, who won the
East,
point?
Brian wins the point.
Okay.
Outside of the NFC East, there is a ton of good football being played this 2020 NFL season. With that said, guys, which division is the toughest right now?
I'm going to go with the NFC West. We talked about a really good matchup in them earlier when we were making our picks. And you look at the Seahawks, they've been one of the best teams in the league so far. They're at the top. And then you look at the rest of their division, all of them are 500 or above. The Rams are 4-2, the Cardinals 4-2, Niners 3-3, and they've been hurt for a while. They're starting to get a couple pieces back and getting healthy. I just like this division a lot. 16-7 overall. You look at them, and they got to play each other. This is a really good division. And you look at the star power, Russ, Chris Carson, DK Metcalf. You look at the Rams, Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, Cooper Kupp, Jared Goff. And then on the Cardinals, you got guys like Kyler Murray and Hopkins. And then you have the reigning NFC champs, a team that almost beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. This is just a star-studded division. They're all 500 or above. These are 4 really good teams. I don't see another division in football that features that.
I think it's the AFC North with the Steelers at 5-0, the Ravens at 5-1, the Browns at 4-2. Listen, the Steelers and Ravens, they look like Super Bowl contenders this year. Big Ben is back with that offense. That Steelers defense is unbelievable. Speaking of good defenses, have you heard of the Ravens defense? They're pretty incredible as well. The Browns, they look like they're turning a corner this year at 4-2. Listen, you have a 5-0 team and a 5-1 team. The Ravens are considered to be the second best team in the NFL by so many people, including myself. This division is going to be a battle to the very end with these 3 teams.
Yeah, but what about honestly, the Bengals?
What about the Bengals? These teams could make the playoffs
right now. What about the Bengals?
I think when you have the second best team in the NFL in the Ravens
West.
And the Steelers are
the point here has to go to Aaron. We're talking about Super Bowl contenders. We're not talking about 16-7.
The Seahawks aren't?
It's October. You have 2 Super Bowl contenders in the AFC North. Moving on here, 2020 has changed a lot of things. The one thing it did not change, though, is the urgency to win college football games. Ohio State opens with Nebraska on Saturday. Big noon kickoff on Fox. Does Ohio State miss the college football playoff with a loss?
Honestly, I think so, and here's why. Clemson and Alabama are obviously going to get in this year. I don't see anybody beating them, so they will definitely get in. Georgia's going to be the other team that gets in. They've been playing at an elite level this year. I know they lost to Alabama. I know they might have to play them again, but that's not really a concern of theirs right now. They're the number 3 team in the country at the moment. They are really good. If Ohio State loses Saturday, you know who they'll have the exact same record as at the end of the season? Notre Dame. Notre Dame is going to lose one time this year, and it's going to be to Clemson, and that loss to Clemson is way more forgivable than an Ohio State loss to Nebraska.
Know why?
Notre Dame makes the college football playoff, and then Ohio State, if they lose on Saturday, will not.
You want to know why you're wrong? Because Notre Dame won't have a Big Ten title. Yes, Notre Dame can play for the ACC title this year, but if you're saying they're losing to Clemson, then they don't have it. Conference titles mean a lot to the College Football Playoff Committee. Also, if you think that a one-loss team in week 1 is just out, then you haven't been looking at the picture as a whole. One team's going to come out of the ACC, that's Clemson. 1 to 2 teams out of the SEC. If Georgia can win the SEC title, then yes, both them and Alabama are getting in. But after last week, I don't know if that'll happen. If Ohio State loses on Saturday and they run the table, the College Football Playoff Committee will look at them as one of the best 4 teams.
The College Football Playoff Committee will look at the loss from Clemson to Notre Dame versus Nebraska, and Notre Dame will get into the College Football Playoffs.
Guys, the point's got to go to Brian. If you look at Ohio State's schedule, they lose this game, they still got to win 5 games against ranked teams. The ACC is a cupcake outside of Clemson. Brian, what's up next week?
Well, next week, obviously, we're going to talk about that, everything that went down in the Big Ten and all of football, plus the World Series, and we'll take a look at the Ohio State versus Penn State game that's coming up in a week. Really exciting week, but that's all the time we have for now. For Aaron Valentino, Brandon Ladd, everyone here at WTOP 10, thank you for watching Laker Pro. Have a good night.